And we do have 50 plus in the room, so we'll get this party started, as I like to say. In the room, Randall, Mark, 69, Coronet 500, Ed G, John Michael Karma, DePaul, 31, a good friend, Steve G, retired butcher boy, Cyberdoc, Idris Taylor, Hobie Jackson. Sometimes I listen to myself, both the person and just a statement that is true at all times. Scott Summers, it might be a little over 78. Sometimes my numbers here lag a little bit, but it's getting warm here and it's sunny out, blue skies. It's beautiful. Elathea is in the house. Thank you very much for a good friend from England. And a lot of familiar faces. I like to get the day started with friends. Stephen Martin's checking in, finally caught a beginning. By going Stephen Martin, we don't recognize, we of course recognize him as not being the Steve Martin. Although he might go by Steve Martin, we don't know. But Johnny Knoxville is trying to juggle 3 lives at the same time. I say just stick around here. It's a little mellower, a little less controversial, perhaps. Andrew Lee from Nome, Alaska, a good friend up there in Nome, where I suspect the days are quite long right about now, and perhaps just about to start shortening a bit as time goes by. I've got a good friend in Anchorage. He's an attorney up there, and he's told me horror stories. And of course, I've seen the movie Insomnia, the American version about life up there. So the Prodigal Stranger, Dan Boyd, and others are in the house. Also, Lil Riggs I Am, Mexican Spec. Always got to tell you that we got the cup over here because you always ask. Georgiana Thornton in San Antonio. Chad Crum. Old Paint 71 or a defense economics PowerPoint could be something to watch instead of this. You never know. Theodore Becker says it's humid where he's at. I am McNathan from Sun City, Center, Florida, Salguco, and here I am. Here indeed we are. Hey, Pat K, listening from a poker tournament table in Las Vegas. Are you playing poker or are you just watching? He's watching. Elathea, England is sunny today. Yeah, and of course, today is a day of Glastonbury, if I'm not incorrect. To use a double negative properly. G Keyman 565. Hello, Steve Lehto and friends. Theodore Becker, ever use a Harrison broadcast console? I don't know the brand names of the consoles I ever used. I would recognize them. I used 2 or 3 of the old style ones that had the big Bakelite knobs, knobs that are about this big, and you turned them like this. And then I had some that had the faders on them. But I understand faders, push faders are just potentiometers also, but I'm I'm not sure. So, Michael Lawless, are you friends with any judges outside of court? Just a couple, in the sense that I've spoken to them, when they're not on the bench, and there's one in particular who I speak to occasionally. Will call me with legal questions because he will occasionally have questions that he can't get answered otherwise. I can't go into it too much. You don't want to talk too much about judges and what they do when they're not on the bench, just because I don't want anybody to think that I'm influencing him. I'm not. But Dan Boyd, Scott Holcomb, Greg Ferrari in Tehachapi, California. Am I saying it right? Tehachapi? Doesn't ring a bell. Vinny Sluga from Rolling Meadows, Illinois. Sounds beautiful, those Rolling Meadows, right? MH08, is WD-40 a good cure for a stuck spark plug wire? Yeah, there's always the danger if you're yanking on a spark plug wire, you might cause it, probably to replace it anyway. I'm always more concerned about the stuck spark plugs. Dan Boyd, potentiometers for the win. Push button volumes are awful. Johnny Knoxville. Don't forget stuck nuts. Yeah, and then of course you got to hose them down with something and get a big old either an X bar, like if you're using it to take lugs off of a car, or a big old breaker bar. Brandon C, can lemon law cover purebred pets? No. There are laws that would cover them, believe it or not, but it would be more of your contract law, common law type things. Believe it or not, if somebody sold you a dog and they claimed it was a purebred such and such and it wasn't, and you could prove that, you might be able to make a claim for breach of warranty. But then you got to get into whether or not a dog is a goods. And I'm not sure if they are. It's been a while since I looked at that because, of course, livestock is classified as its own category. Mark Miller, what about the crazy lady judge who's doing time now? Which which one? Chris Pott, whatever you did, the audio is very good now. I've done nothing. Johnny Knoxville recommends liquid wrench. Liquid wrench is one of those things that whoever invented it deserves like a Nobel Prize in chemistry, I guess, or physics. I don't know. But yeah, liquid wrench is a lifesaver. Sometimes I listen to myself. Why would the postal supervisor keep all the cards? Isn't getting rid of the evidence kind of important if you want to get away with it? I actually caught myself. I was going to say something, and anytime I say something like that, people go, Steve, are you giving advice so people can break the law?" But the guy stole hundreds of cards, birthday cards, gift cards, whatever, and he stole the cash and the gift cards out of them and hung on to the envelopes and the cards. And yes, that's mistake number one. Well, I guess stealing them was mistake number one, but from a criminal mastermind viewpoint, keeping the evidence was a big mistake. Yes. So there you go. Michael Lawless, have you ever been in front of Judge Cedric Simpson in Ann Arbor or watched in a circuit court? No, I have not. I've seen him on the YouTube many times. Judge Simpson is one who seems to have a lot of his stuff show up on YouTube because he's got a lot of colorful people appear in front of him, and he doesn't put up with nonsense. He does not put up with. I like the guy a lot. I actually know somebody who had him as an attorney before he was a judge. So he's been around a bit in that area. Alethea, yeah, it's Glastonbury this weekend. I've never actually been, though, as it's way too crazy for me. Well, here's the thing. I'm at the age now where the idea of standing in an open field under the hot sun for 12 hours and sitting through 3 bands I don't like just to hear the 2 I do like is starting to sound not as fun as it used to. But Glastonbury is one of those things. I've always thought to myself, something, I might want to do it just one time. I hate the phrase bucket list. I've never really cared for, what's on my bucket list. But it's one of those things I've always thought I might want to do it just once, just to say I've done it. James Chamelik slinks into the chat like a lake creature, not a sea creature, a lake creature. So there you go. John Michael Carmen says old Jeeps are better than new Jeeps. I assume that's a statement you are making, or is it a question? I did shoot the video and post it on my second channel Friday about a drive, meet the Jeep, and I went for about a 20-minute drive in my new Jeep. It's new to me. It's a '98 Jeep. It's an old Jeep, but it was a lot of fun, and a lot of people seem to enjoy the video. I got some pushback, but you get pushback on anything. I could post a video where I could come out and just say, 2 is a number. Thank you. And people, no, Steve, technically you're wrong. See, you might have been meaning the TO or TOO. Those are not numbers. See, and you didn't specify that. So then if I specified the numeral 2 is a number. No, see, Steve, you have to understand, not all languages use the same numerals we do. Some cultures use other forms. And so the numeral 2 would actually be, people will argue with anything. Not everybody, but somebody always will. So it's got the point now. I've learned to just kind of disregard the minority who complain about everything. Johnny Knoxville, the sky is blue. No, it's not. No, see, actually, it's overcast. You have to understand, it's more of an optical illusion because although the color blue does appear to be what you see to your eyes, the actual air is not blue. So therefore, the sky is not. Dan Boyd, I was surprised to see the peeling clear coat. A vehicle's been parked in the sun for 27 years. You might have some peeling, but at least the paint wasn't peeling down to the metal. That's why I don't care. Mike Lackner. Viewers argue the minutiae, so it's like you're married to us. Yes. Oh, Johnny Knoxville. Any medical diagnoses lately? Actually, somebody commented and called me bald. For a guy who's bald, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I mean, y- you, I got to ask you people can see my hair, right? I realize it's blonde, but you should be able to see it. Blah 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 says he does not agree that people argue about anything. Oh boy. Mr. Rex 90s Chrysler paint wasn't the best. Well, no, this is not a bad paint job. This is literally a vehicle sat outside, exposed to the elements for 27 years. So, John Michael Karma paint patina on old vehicles is the new cool look. Yeah, that's the thing nowadays. People take a vehicle that's not rusty, they say leave it, and I agree with that. So, Mike D, what do you mean by you people? The audience? I have to, but I have to refer to you in the second person. I'm talking to you, right? David P, I missed two things: my hair and my sense of humor. Johnny Knoxville car paint was good until the manufacturers went to waterborne paint, which is soft and chips easily. You'll recall there was a whole bunch of different issues with vehicles in the late 80s, early 90s, and it varied from manufacturer to manufacturer, but several of them tried this where they were experimenting with either like primerless painting processes or something. And you'd see these cars driving down the road with just big like slabs of paint missing, just whole peeling off in sheets. And it was just and I remember a lot of times it would happen outside of warranty, so it didn't make much difference. So Mr. Rex, all my Chryslers from the 90s had peeling paint. I've owned two or three Chryslers from the 90s. And only paint issue I have is the clear coat that's bad on my Jeep, which is now 27 years old. So Mexican spec, the mid to late 80s Chevy S10s couldn't keep paint on the trucks. And I'm guessing that that's the same period and problem I'm talking about. Theodore Becker, so you have a different mic for the show than you're using now. Well, yes, but it's there's a mic right there. Hang on, right there. But it's identical to this mic right here. James Milano, hi Steve from Puebla. David Peterson, not a big fan of the color choices on new vehicles. Yeah, no, you know something. A lot of vehicles nowadays are made bland colors, bland, and there's like three different shades of like gray or silver or light black, or they got cool names for them. Magnesium bronze or whatever, and it's like okay, whatever. So Devin Bound checking in from the Pacific Northwest. I assume that's what PNW stands for. Steve G says that watching paint peel is more exciting than watching it dry. Jerry Dodge, pale green cars look gross as opposed to pale green pants. Mr. Amp Tech, the RE20 with an exclamation mark, is exactly how you should render the name of this microphone. I love these mics. Chuck Whitehead, I'm surprised they don't use pre-painted parts already molded in. Well, I know they're talking about that slate truck that's coming. It's not here yet. That's why I put it in the quotes. And they're talking about having those body parts molded, I believe, with just colored material. Therefore, they don't need to be painted. And it would save a lot of cost. And also, it's an environmental nightmare to set up a modern painting process. So, Rambler, if you have to list your top 3 cars to buy today under $20,000, it's hard to do that with used cars because, I mean, what you can get a car for is always a matter of your bargaining ability. to some extent. But I don't actually follow used car prices all that much. I know people who do. My good friend Mark Lieberman at Nostalgic Motoring could sit here and talk all day long. You can throw a make, model, and year of a car at him and go, oh yeah, one of those should be about this or this, but so. Javier Morales says, I can't stand people who buy massive trucks just to cruise around and never halt or do a day of work with them. What's the point? I wonder that myself. And that's the thing is I've never owned a pickup truck. I've had a bunch of Ford Explorers, but I routinely do haul stuff with them. And I don't trash them, but I do a bumper hitch on one of them. And I use them. But you'll see somebody's got this big, beautiful, shiny truck, and it's jacked all up, and it's got beautiful wheels on it, and that thing's never been anywhere near any kind of foliage, including grass. So, Mark Miller says, I saw a vehicle review and the name was Agate Black. The reviewer mispronounced agate and lost my view at that point. If you can't pronounce a word, look it up. Well, it depends. I mean, agate's one I would know, I would think, but every now and then, what gets me are place names, and I feel bad because I know that there's a lot of sensitivity with place names, where somebody goes, "Hey, Steve, you mispronounced Escanaba," or something. Now, I would know Escanaba, of course, but other parts of the country have got some strange names that I'm unfamiliar with. Cyberdoc salutations. Chris Better, a pavement princess. That's like a trailer queen. We've talked about this before. I've seen those cars show up at car shows where the truck and the trailer show up, and then they push the car off and they push it into its space. And when they're done, they push it back. I mean, they don't even fire it up. I mean, does it run? Josh, a shiny hitch ball 3 feet off the ground. I've seen some vehicles also towing where they clearly have a mismatch between the trailer and the vehicle, so that the trailer's pushing down in the back end of the or it's like this, or it's not balanced right. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville mentioned Escanaba, and he'll remind us that the police there are extremely friendly, especially if they spot an out-of-state plate. They will pull you over just to talk to you and make sure you're enjoying your visit. Jennifer, your video from the other day going for a drive in your Jeep is the reason why we don't want self-driving vehicles. Some of us just like to drive. Yeah, I got a lot of compliments too. People are saying, Steve, I didn't know that dirt roads with that kind of foliage still existed anywhere near town. And I'm lucky. I've mentioned before, I do a lot of mountain biking and running, and I do most of it on dirt roads. And so I can get onto dirt about a half a mile from my house. And then I can take dirt around all over the place at that point. So I love going for drives on those roads. I mean, I won't take a nice vehicle down them, especially not on a rainy day. But on my Explorers or my Jeep all day long and twice on Sunday. Lethal Logic of Gaming. I do weekend hauling and tow my riding mower to do jobs with the Corolla. Why not? Why not? Oh, Devin Bounce is pronounced Puget, Skagit, and Puyallup. Am I close? It's probably no. It's Skagit and pull y'all up. Edgy. I think people buy trucks just to walk into the hitch they never use. Vibe check. Absolutely love your channel. I had no idea how widespread civil asset forfeiture was. I called my congressman about it. They don't actually get called as often as you'd think, so it's important. Really? I was under the impression that what would happen is you call your congressman and somebody answer the phone who's an intern who'd say thank you, and they would make a note, 1 vote no. But hey, Johnny Knoxville, thank you, sir. I'll never buy a 12-pack of hams from the Escanaba Walmart ever again on a holiday weekend. But you understand how much ham 12-packs they sell at Escanaba's Walmart on holiday weekends? You're lucky you even got one. Patrick O'Boyle, do you play harmonica? No, I do not. I do also have the one that harmonica players like so much. It's not on the set, but it's goldish colored, And the reason it's on the set is I don't have a stand for it, but it's got the thing that fits in the back of your hand really, really well. And in the video for Runaround by Blues Traveler, John Popper's playing the microphone with his harmonica in one hand. He's using that microphone to play the harmonica with his other hand. But yeah, mind bend, no dirt for the Viper. No, I try not to. I actually once made a wrong turn and went down a road that turned dirt really fast. Technically, its tires have touched dirt, but I turned around as fast as I could. Oh boy. Haywood, do you like Hummer H2s? I like the Hummer original vehicles, the H1s, but I'm not a big fan of the H2s. It's actually, I believe it's just a Suburban that's been rebodied, and it's just a monstrosity for soccer moms who want to have a bigger vehicle than the other soccer mom. So James Schmelik says he lives in the middle of the city, but he can get to the middle of nowhere within half an hour. Mighty Mouse, people say Steve. And I've had people actually say, no, they don't. Dan Boyd is Ham's beer from Michigan. I don't think so. I always thought it was like from Milwaukee, maybe. Stroh's is from Detroit. Stroh's and Verner's and a few other things. But yeah, Stroh's and Verner's are the two things that most people think of as beverages from Detroit. Jason Brindamauer says the build quality of the H2 is not good. Tom Rogers, ever owned a motorcycle? No, I have not. I've ridden one a couple times, but not a lot of times. I've got a couple brothers who are into motorcycles quite a bit. I want to buy a mini bike really bad. I often walk to get my mail, and the only other thing I would do to go get my mail, I think, is ride a mini bike. I'd love to. I need a mini bike. I've been looking at Honda mini trails, and the question then is, since I've never owned a foreign car, can I buy a Honda mini trail, or would they be breaking my streak? So, by the way, did I say the names right? Somebody else just said I used to work in Puyallup, MH08. I just realized I forgot to check to see if that came up about my pronunciations. Somebody suggested Johnny Knoxville. Hams is from Minnesota, the land of sky blue water. I thought they're the land of lakes, or do they have several? Ella Thea says, I found out a cool bit of history yesterday. The plot of land I live on used to be an area of grass the village used to park their cars on. Okay, so you live in a car park, do you? Jay Klein is Genesee beer from Michigan. I don't think so, but Genesee, there is a county and a town. But Genesee, I believe the name here came from a name in New York. New Yorkers came to Detroit and Michigan, and then when they moved north, they had a place named. Yeah, let's call it Genesee. Jason Brindamar says I could take my riding mower to the mailbox, but it's Sunday and the battery is dead. Mexican Specs says Land O'Lakes is a butter. Oh yeah, it is. It's that too. But I think Land O'Lakes was also a nickname for a state or two. Bill Truitt says, I guess all my comments are ghost later. I don't know what that means. Hang on, let me see. Did I miss something Bill said? Let me see. The gender killed my favorite beer. I stopped drinking. You stopped drinking altogether, or you just stopped drinking that beer? What other comments did you make, my friend? I'm looking. I'm back quite a ways. I don't see any other comments. Huh. I don't see any more. I apologize. I literally try to read as many as I can. And as you can imagine, I can't read them all out loud. And so I'm skimming and I'm looking for things that I think might be interesting or answers that I can give to questions. So Mr. Rex's Stroh's is gone, unfortunately. Mike Lackner says a zip line to the mailbox would be great. Interesting idea. Beata Graf av Dalhagen, a lot can get missed in a hearty chat. Yes, that is true. And I apologize. I actually go back and watch these a day or two later and I see all kinds of stuff I miss. And I apologize, but there's only so much I can do. Tom Rogers, did you return the call for a New Year Viper's extended warranty? I've never gotten one on my Viper. I never have. I get them all the time on my brand new Explorer, and I also get them on my old Explorer. And what's funny is my brand new Explorer, when I got it, was about a month old, and I got a thing saying, "Warning, your warranty has expired," and all this. It's like, no, it hasn't. How many people run their brand new vehicle out of warranty in the first month they own it? The first month, it's possible, but highly unlikely. The Angry Vet, thank you for everything you do, Steve. You are a godsend to this community. Thank you, and I appreciate that. I'm not sure which community you're referring to, though. There's a lot of communities that we all belong to, as opposed to you all. And so I don't know if you mean the community people on YouTube or people our age, if you are roughly my age, or if you simply mean the legal issues I talk about, which is primarily what I do talk about. Rudy says the 175-year-old farm they're trying to take away with eminent domain. Exclamation marks, question marks, and more exclamation marks. That's not a complete sentence. I have not updated the story yet. I've heard some things, some little chatter saying that there might be some stuff going on. And if something major happens, legitimately where something does happen, as opposed to people talking about things might happen, then I'll do a follow-up. TurningNet says, just call the Davenport area the Quad Cities and not worry about pronouncing things correctly. There's also a great band called Quad Cities that has that song Safe and Sound, which I like a lot. About 15 years ago, maybe. It's now an oldie, but I like that song a lot. So Mr. Rex is You're Only Human. What do you say about humans, huh? Mr. Smithers, I remember seeing a beer called literally emergency drinking beer. Emergency, in case of emergency. In case of emergency, break this seal. And it'd be like a, you know. Kenneth Bennington, when's the new book going to be available? The updated Turban Car book? September. So it sounds a long way off, and it is, but that's how things are in traditional publishing. They actually do things like, I don't know, edit and typeset. But it's coming. And in fact, let me double check here. We'll go to the phones. And the only reason I'm going to the phones is I can probably show you. Possibly, I can possibly show you. There's the new cover for the book. So you'll notice that it says up here at the top, expanded edition. And then down below, it says, with a new forward by Jay Leno. So it's the same cover with Bill Carey leaning on the bumper of a Turban Car, but it's been updated. So it'll be coming out in the fall. When it comes out, I will make a big announcement here, as you can imagine. And I'll probably also make the same offer I always do, where I will buy a bunch of them myself and make an offer on the channel to where if you want to buy a signed one from me, I will do that. And I'll spend a weekend signing till my arm falls off. But, you know, if you want to buy it from me and you want me to sign it for you, I'm happy to do that. So, well, James says you can train a raccoon or woodchuck or maybe a woodpecker to go get your mail. I wouldn't trust them with the mail. Although the raccoon, if you trained the raccoon like, hey, bring me the mail and I'll give you like a marshmallow, probably. But the woodchuck would probably just say, hey, I want to take down this whole mailbox. And so would the woodpecker, frankly. So, Moto Rocker, I hope you'll cover the $7.1 million judgment against the illegal towing operation in Kansas City, Mo. I actually saw that one. Several people have sent it to me. I will cover it probably this upcoming week. Fishman, doesn't a Viper have a V12? No, it's got a V10. A V10. A V12 is just so pedestrian. No, it's a V10, 488 cubic inches of aluminum power. So, yeah, V10, V10. Prodigal Stranger says V8. And Padre says no, V10. So, Mindbend says, note to new users, there's no way Steve can respond to all messages. I had done a weather report. He did not respond. I apologize again. MH08 says, a crazy homeless woman stole my mailbox. Really? She carried it off or what? Rob DeSlav says, Steve, Nintendo's bricking the Switch 2 game systems. Do a story on that. I've had people send that to me also. I'm not that familiar with what a Switch 2 game system is. I haven't got one. But I understand it's some kind of video playing device. I'll look into it. The Angry Vet, I had a V12 Jag. How dependable were the electronics in it? Oh. Stormtrooper 88, you have my shirt on again. Getting weird. One of my favorite shirts. This one? I have a bunch of these Eddie Bauer shirts. They were gifts from a viewer. There's two viewers of mine who I suspect they work in the industry or something because they keep sending me clothing and they've dialed it in. It's all kinds of stuff. It fits and I like it. Mexican Spec, did you add new chapters about Jay getting a new engine? Yes, that's the whole point. That's why I updated the book. That, and I also tell the story about the other turbine car that changed hands that I got to drive, and anything else that happened since my previous book came out, previous edition. And sadly, two of the guys, including the guy in the cover of the book, Bill Carey, passed away last year. And I went to their funerals. I went to Bill Carey's funeral like a month later. Went to Jerry Gross's funeral. Very, very sad. But they were extremely helpful. And these guys were just both so important with how valuable their knowledge was and how willing they were to help. Fatty Butterpants points out that some people do call it aluminium, as opposed to aluminum. And I believe the aluminium is more of a British English thing. So, yeah, Dan Boyd Lucas is the Lord of Darkness. I always hear people joking about electronics and carburetors on British cars. So, Mr. Smithers says aluminum was once as valuable as gold, if not more so. What time frame would that have been in? Because gold has been valuable pretty much ever since we started walking upright. Aluminum, of course, has great value, especially in times of war. World War II, we used a ton of it, tons of it, literally. So, J. Klein Lucas, British engineering with Italian reliability. Poor dirt farmer. I've never met anyone that owned a Ferrari. I've met a couple. I got to ride in Ed Bolian's Lamborghini a little over a week ago. That was fun. Cyberdox's aluminium is how it was originally written in the periodic table of elements. Really? Yeah, Fatimore says aluminum and aluminium are both acceptable in the dictionary. Yes, but aluminum is more how the Americans say it. Mexican Spec, the Jag had more problems other than the electrical system. Just about everything failed on them when you least expect it. I just knew guys who owned the Jags from the 60s and 70s, just like a joke. Like the same way you joke about Pintos catching on fire, you joke about Jags not starting or breaking down. Whether or not, it's just a reputation they got. MH08 friend of mine had a 69 Roadrunner, never had a good battery, but he lived on a steep hill. And that would do it because you could roll start it. And I've had situations before where I had a manual transmission and a problem with the battery, and I knew I could push start it, or if I knew somebody nearby, I could get help. And then, of course, if you could park it on a hill, you can roll start it if you're good. So, Marjan is in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Beep boop bot also in the house. Especially drives me nuts. Especially, it's one of those words. Especially, there's a bunch of those where people insert or they drop a letter that's hard to pronounce. So, yeah, there's a lot of those. Mr. Smithers says we're talking like the early to late 19th century because of how difficult aluminum was to isolate from its ore. But what uses were for, what uses were they putting it to back then? So, oh, the prodigal stranger says forget aluminum. Try to pronounce you can go molybdenum or molybdenum. I think you got it misspelled though, molybdenum. Because I've also heard molybdenum. But molybdenum is commonly used in some lubricants, heavy duty stuff. But I've heard of it. Yes. Yes. Johnny Knoxville says the British like calling transmissions gearboxes. And of course, you've got the bonnet and the boot. Bob Loblaw says I roll started a 1960 Studebaker automatic down the hill. Now the question is, you understand that not all automatics can be started that way because it's kind of like a ratchet, but in a manual transmission, standard shift, it is all direct drive and so on. Of course with the clutch, but you can force the engine to turn by simply turning the back wheels. And the question is, does an automatic transmission lock up like that the same way? And I've heard people claim that they push started and roll started automatics, but I know that it's not always possible. Jerry Dodge, can you be more Pacific? More Pacific. The prodigal stranger, espresso. You want some espresso? Mexican spec. I just noticed YouTube is using names here. Last night on a live was only handles. What do you mean handles? You mean the icons, the thumbnails? Dirt Bike Michigan, are you familiar with Detroit vocalist John Brannon of Negative Approach, Laughing Hyenas and Easy Action? No, I am not. I've never heard of any of the above. Daniel Kester, is Heather in today? The Canadian robot lady. I sent her a note and she has not responded back. She might be at work. She sometimes works on Sundays. Sometimes I listen to myself. Who came up with the English pronunciation of colonel? Colonel. Don't know. That's a weird one. Oh, PB, CS, TX. I hate when people say ask me. Yeah, ask me anything. Ask me anything, I'll tell you. Javier says, Steve, AM radio is still part of the National Defense backup systems. If the internet goes down, that's how they'll reach us, not TikTok. But here's the question. They're also now talking about removing AM radios from cars. And so the question then becomes, what do you do? I mean, how many people have an AM radio in their house? I'm pretty certain that cars are the last place AM radios still have any market penetration. Code Mr. Beats, molybdenum. Johnny Knoxville, molybdenum. So say it fast. Prodigal stranger, sorry, typing is not my forte. My forte. Oh, Mexican spec gearbox is not a box. Yeah, but it is a self-contained thingy, so it's a container. Sergeant Bob just picked a pile of veggies from the garden. Not sure there's an alternative explanation for that. What kind of veggies did you get? I mean, is this early in the season or is there stuff already ripe now? Yeah, molybdenum, according to Glenn Combs, and I believe he's correct, is when you talk about chrome moly steel, that's the moly that's been alloyed into it. to give it some strength. Paul Harris, when YouTubers say across. I ran across the street, across. Yeah, David C. Cars are getting so much electronic noise-making stuff, AM radios don't work that well. Dirt Bike Michigan, are you a fan of Howard Stern? Yes, I am. And I have people go, oh, Steve, I've lost all faith in you. He's so filthy. Number one, he's on Sirius XM, and I hear so many people complain about him who haven't heard him in 20 years. But you have to understand that in the world of radio, he was inventive and cutting edge, and most people only know him for the toilet humor, and they don't understand how many things he invented and how creative he was and how far ahead of the curve he was. He is without question the most imitated radio personality of all time, and the fact that he's being imitated is an indication of something. But nowadays, he does more long form interviews than anything else. And he does that really, really well. So, Belios's forte is a musical term. When it's someone's specialty, you don't say the accent on it. Really? See, I don't. Okay. I'm looking it up. FORTE. Go. A thing at which someone excels. And then it says it's pronounced either forte or fort. And it shows it as an alternative pronunciation. So there is some controversy over how to correctly pronounce forte. Common choices in American English are forte and forte. But many usage commentators recommend dumping the second syllable because the E is not pronounced in French. Interesting. But I suspect that that's a losing battle. That's the hill you're going to die on. So, Freaking Awesome says mesothelioma is the craziest word to pronounce. I'm an attorney. I can pronounce it. You've seen the ads on television. I've never handled a meso case. But the people who don't like to pronounce it just say meso. But mesothelioma is, in fact, I believe, the cancer you get in your lungs from being exposed to asbestos. Asbestos. Sergeant Bob, cucumbers, banana and green peppers, lettuce, and collard greens. Johnny Knoxville says Howard Stern's become a prude and tries to act like his past never existed. Well, I suppose that's a possible explanation. It's also possible he grew up a little bit, kind of like the Grinch at the end of the movie when his heart grew a couple sizes. Because I've listened to him lately, and he still occasionally does discuss perverted stuff. You also got to remember that he's gotten married since the old days, and he married, got settled down. So but it's one of those things where the guy's got a career that goes back over 45 years. So there's gonna be a lot of evolution in there as well. S. McG, what do you think about Jeeps? Well, I've got one now. I like it, but it's a 98 Wrangler. Marjan K. Cavusi says, Attorney Steve, you're the only person who's ever gotten my last name right. No one else has ever even tried. I just say what I see. K. Cavusi. Oh, boy. Javier says, don't forget how revolutionary the Arby's oven mitt commercials were. That thing had more personality than half the ads today. It was the brand. Yeah, but now they got horrible commercials. We have the meats. We have the meats. It sounds like a really bad punchline to a joke. We have the meats. Okay. Fatty McButterpants reminds that asbestos is natural. Think of the next time you buy food that is labeled natural. There's all kinds of things that are natural to kill you. Volcanoes. I mean, they're natural. Jump in, go for a swim. Oh boy. Bob Blah Blah says you never have a problem with pronouncing my name. Because all I do all day long is blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Belio, is that the Jeep whose doors were stolen? No, the doors were stolen off the original Jeep I owned back in 1994 or 5. I bought that Jeep brand new that the doors were stolen off of. So Daniel Kester says people often say his last name wrong. They say Keister or they say Kester? Dan Boyd, I haven't eaten at Arby's in probably over 10 years. I've eaten at Arby's a few times, but I tend to eat fast food when I'm on the road. And so I often don't even see Arby's or think about them. There's a great episode of The Simpsons where they're stranded on an island in an episode called Das Bus, where the twins say, I'm so hungry, I could eat Arby's. And one of them goes, ooh. MD Hofsty claims there's an explanation as to what they mean by we have the meats. He says it's a reference to the aspect that in the past they only had roast beef. And of course, Arby's, RB, roast beef. But now they've got turkey, brisket, chicken, and ham. So we have the meats. So you have the other meats? Do you still have the previous meat? Like, we have all the meats. I guess you can't say you got, because they don't have rattlesnake, right? So, yeah, sometimes I listen to myself points out that the most dangerous of canoes are volcanoes. I guess that works better when you read it. Oh. Bob Blah Blah says Arby's sells 3 sandwiches for $7. The best deal on food. But isn't that where they basically just take the buns and stick the meat in there with nothing else? Like literally just a plain roast beef sandwich? That could be. Daniel Kester says Kester. John Michael Karma says Arby's used to have a Jamocha shake. That was good. Rob Wessel, the Arby's near us closed and will reopen as a Jack in the Box. Yeah, see, Jack in the Box has been missing from Michigan for a long time. I remember there being Jack in the Boxes when I was in high school. They kind of went away. So I'm not really sure how widespread Jack in the Boxes are with respect to market penetration. But it's like Hardee's. I know where a few Hardee's are. But it's like, haven't eaten at Hardee's a long time. Smotherberg says that in high school, I convinced our English teacher to play the episode Das Bus in class because we were reading Lord of the Flies. I just got a note from Heather, and I don't think she'll mind me reading this out loud. I said, are you working today? And she wrote, yes, I'm working. All I do is work. So she won't be here today. Oh, boy. MD Hofsty says Arby's does not stand for RB, but it stands for the Raphael brothers. And it's never stood for roast beef. Never mind the fact they had ads saying America's roast beef. Yes, sir. So I guess it was America's Raphael brothers. Yes, sir. Oh. Mindbend. Do they have kangaroo meat in Australia? Kazooie, Trisha, what's the yellow monster behind you? Okay, that one? That is the KIMN chicken. KIMN, I believe, is the call letters. It's the mascot of a radio station out, I believe, in Colorado. Yeah, Daniel Kester says Carl's Jr. owns Hardee's. Yeah, they've changed owners a couple times. So we don't have Carl's Jr. in Michigan, but we do have Hardee's. And don't forget, 85-8 Bill says Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. Is that still around anywhere? There used to be an Arthur Treacher's near my parents' house when I was growing up, but I haven't seen one in years. Fatty McButterpants didn't Jack in the Box kill a bunch of people? I believe they did have an E. coli problem or something, some kind of food poisoning issue, which is not good for business. But then again, a lot of businesses do if they do a lot of stuff with lettuce is one of the problems I think for E. coli. Jerry Dodge's Jack in the Box is a terrible name. How about Gear in the Box? Jay Dixon says, I was a mascot chicken for the last hour giving out treats in my village for Canada Day. David C., have you still been hiding a $100 bill in your videos? Well, I don't know how hidden it is. It's back there. Cyberdocs' Arthur Treachers is long since departed. When did they go out of business or get bought out by somebody? That's one I'll look up. Chris Potty of White Castle, Michigan. Of course, yes. Yes, we do. Cyberdoc, Long John Silver's is still here in Virginia. We've got a couple in Michigan. I know 2 or 3 of them are. I haven't been to one in a long time. I liked Long John Silver's a lot, but unfortunately, the company ran into financial issues somewhere along the road. The Prodigal Stranger, whatever happened to Sizzler? Sizzler. Was that one of the places that had the all-you-can-eat stuff? I'm not sure if I ever ate at a Sizzler or not. Maybe a long time ago. Fatty McButterpants says Long John Silver's is greasy, but the thing is, they have the chicken tenders, which are really, really good. But then they went and changed the formula of their honey mustard sauce. So, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. Javier, did you see the St. Paul story where a parent climbed into the Chuck E. Cheese tubes and the whole thing collapsed? Total chaos, kids screaming and pizza everywhere. No, I did not see that. The sad part is there's probably a sign someplace saying, for children only or something. But what are you going to do? Dan Boyd, I missed Burger Chef. Wasn't Burger Chef bought out by somebody else? I've seen on the History Channel, they've got these documentaries about the history of different aspects of the food industry. And they've done some documentaries about the history of fast food burger joints, for instance, like McDonald's and Burger King. I seem to recall Burger Chef popping up there. So Devin Bound, I couldn't find the 100 in the Shut Up Steve video. Video on my backup channel. I'm sure it was there. I don't ever take it off the set. I usually lay it back there. Yeah, Mindbend, White Castles everywhere in Wayne County. No, yeah, we've got them. They're not uniformly spread across the state like McDonald's is or something. Cyberdoc Ponderosa as a kid. I think Ponderosas are still around, but I haven't been one of those in 40 years. Yeah, Sub GR. Burger Chef was bought by Hardee's. So I remember when I was growing up, there's a chain of restaurants, I believe in northern Michigan and over into Wisconsin and Minnesota called Sandy's. Sandy's. And we loved stopping at the Sandy's in Marquette. And then one year we came by and it changed to a Hardee's. So Hardee's apparently bought out Sandy's. Stormtrooper 88. Okay, Steve, all this talk doing fish and chips for dinner now. Clifton McCurdy says, technically, Burger Chef was acquired by Imasco, also the owner of Hardee's, in about 1982. Sergeant Bob, I'm biased to miss Bob's Big Boy. And Big Boy was a franchise that had a huge presence in Michigan. And then also there's Bob's Big Boy in California. And I never quite understood the corporate structure of it. But Big Boy's done this the whole time. And there were times they were everywhere and times where they were shrinking. I know where one was that closed during COVID and it's gone now. Like literally the building is gone. Dan Boyd, I remember Sandy's. Devin Bound is referring to Sam Crack's video. Oh, the video where Sam told me to shut up. It would be there. I just don't know where. I'd have to take a look at it because I shot that video specifically for him. A lot of people didn't realize this, but I appeared in a video put up on Sam Crack's channel. If you don't know about Sam Crack, go to Sam Crack. It's SAMCRAC. Sam Crack buys wrecked cars or beat up cars at auction and fixes them and sells them, or fixes them, cleans them up. And he bought a recycled lemon, a lemon law buyback. And he and I have spoken about this before. And he said, could you make me like a 1-minute clip that explains what the lemon law is and the danger of buying a lemon law buyback? And since we talked about it before, I said, sure. What's the angle? He said, I just bought another one. I said, okay. So I explained it. And at the very, very end, I said, so if you're going to do this, you got to be careful. And he played that and he goes, shut up. Which a lot of people thought that he'd taken that out of one of my videos and was making fun of me. And I'm like, no, I sent it to him. And he told me, he goes, do you mind if I poke fun at you? And I said, no, go right ahead. This is what we do. So Dan Boyd's Elby's is another Big Boy franchise. Greg Hansen worked at Northwest Radio right next to Sandy's in Marquette, 15-cent burgers. Do you remember when they went under, or not under, but changed owners? Because I'm thinking it was when I was a child, which was a couple years ago. Matthias is in the house. Sorry, I'm late. Greetings from Berlin, Germany. I assume you spent the last week scouring the shops looking for a Bismarck t-shirt on a color other than white. Sub GR A&W is still around. I know where there's 2 or 3 A&Ws. We talked about that before. Mark Miller asks, am I drinking water or Gatorade today? And then somebody else says, I think he mixes the two. Cyberdoc. Yes, today I've mixed. It's 50-50 water and Gatorade. I did that because I went to the fridge and only had one Gatorade that was cold. I got some cold water. Oh, boy. Jim's camera at Dawn's Kmart here had a grill in North Carolina. Kmart had a cafeteria in most of the Kmarts, at least I was familiar with at one time. And you go back there and get really, 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 really inexpensive food while you shopped. And it was, you get what you pay for. Johnny Knoxville, Captain Hook's Fish and Chips for Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Oh, Judge. And Judge has got that hat on, the pirate hat while he's out delivering some food, and he turns and he's checking out the hot girl in the car next door. I'll realize I'm wearing a dumb hat. Oh, boy. Taco Cat, the playwright August Wilson wrote the Tony Award-winning Jitney while dining at an Arthur Treacher's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, over a period of time or in one sitting. Padre, remember when KFC had the big bucket on a pole? Oh, turning at many franchises are dying. Add Quiznos, Long John Silver's, A&W, even Subway. Well, Subway overexpanded insanely. There was a time when there's like Subway was as ubiquitous as Starbucks. And Subway, they will let someone put a franchise across the street from yours. If somebody comes along and says, I want to put a franchise across the street from that Subway, they'll let them do it. Quiznos, my understanding is Got some decent market penetration up front, but the franchise fees were a little bit more than the competitive franchises, and as a result, didn't expand that fast after a while. But Sergeant Bob saw a big boy fiberglass statue bring good money on YouTube. I know those get stolen from time to time. I know a town that had one stolen a while back, and I don't think it's turned up yet. So I think I mentioned it last week, but I'm not sure if I did. But I went to a Buc-ee's because I went down to Atlanta to visit my friend Ed Bolian, and I went to Atlanta, then across to Nashville, and then back up. And never been to a Buc-ee's, and I saw all the signs because you can't miss the signs. And I stopped at a Buc-ee's, and it was huge, and I was actually blown away. I was impressed because I thought, what can a rest stop do? What can a gas station, convenient mart, what are you going to call it? What can they do that makes them better than somebody else? And basically, number one, there's a million gas pumps. So despite the fact the place was jam-packed, I just drove across, got gas like that. Then I pulled around, walked inside. The place was a zoo, but hit the men's room, cleanest restrooms I've ever seen outside of a hotel. I'm being serious here. Then bought a bunch of stuff, walked up, and the lines were moving so fast, I was in line for 30 seconds. I've never gotten in and out of a place that fast before. I'm like, what? And the variety of candy and snacks and anything you might want on vacation, they've got it in there. Plus, they've got food. I actually left the place and looked up to see if I could buy stock in the company. It's privately owned. If they sold stock, I'd buy stock in it. It is that well managed. It's unbelievable. So Johnny Knoxville says they pay well too. Well, they're bringing in the cash. Why not? So Matthias, the Bismarck t-shirt will be sent to you next week. It is gray and double XL. I will include some more memorabilia from the Bismarck. Thank you, my friend. Be sure to include your mailing address. I will send you things back from America. Daniel Kester reminds us that there's a truck stop franchise called Stuckey's. Stuckey's, back in the old days. I still know where a Stuckey's building is, but it hasn't been a Stuckey's in decades. But Stuckey's was the same idea, but it's more restaurant-ish, I believe. And there would always be a Stuckey's out in the middle of nowhere. And you know, you're driving along I-75, someplace between Grayling and Gaylord, and there's nothing else. And boom, there's a Stuckey's, you know. Cyberdoc says, I heard Buc-ee's cleans their bathrooms every 30 minutes. It wouldn't surprise me. Place was spotless. Issachus says, investors ruin everything. Well, there's an argument to be made about that. I agree with you. But I'm saying if I see somebody who's got a business that's thriving and I like their business model, if I can invest, I will. I'm not going to be backseat driving. I'm going to say, guys, just keep doing what you're doing. But you're right. Investors are going to come along and go, you know, you pay these people $20 an hour. Maybe you should pay them less. Maybe, yeah, pay them less. Oh, and by the way, do we have to sell all this stuff? Let's cut that in half, you know? I mean, I understand. Bob Blah Blah says truck stops need good coffee. Good coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. AMZ, there's a Stuckey's about an hour from here. So there are Stuckey's still around? Because I think Stuckey's at one point made their own branded candy and stuff, like Buc-ee's does. Buc-ee's got their own branded candy. I bought some Stuckey's, the little red, the tart. I forgot what they're called, but different companies call them different things. TurningNet says that they turned a lot of the Stuckey's into the Lion's Den franchises. Johnny Knoxville says, pilot truck stop bathrooms smell worse than a state fair. I assume you're talking about the livestock barn. Oh, boy. Taco Cat, there were Stuckey's every 50 miles on I-75 from Ohio to Florida. I believe that. Yoda Best says, I ran across a Long John Silver's in Singapore. I wonder if it was legitimate. Was it an actual license? Because, I mean, think about it. If you're in Singapore and you want to start a business, just go, let's call it Long John Silver's. What are they going to do? Sue us? Like in Singaporean court. Gotham Possum. Steve, how you doing? I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. How are you doing? Jason Brindamore, stop at Hardee's every time I drive up north. Like there's a Hardee's in Munising, Michigan. At least there was last time I was there. I'll make a statement like that. Somebody go, "Oh, Steve, that place closed last week," or something. But Munising is a cool little town, and they used to have a Pizza Hut, an A&W, and I forgot what else. But it was always this one building that would be something, and they'd change every couple of years. They'd change and change, and now I think it's a real estate company, not selling food. T-shirt to be sent the address in the bio. The T-shirt needs to go to the address that is in the end screen of every I thought I could do that right there. I guess I can't. But it's in the end screen of every video. P.O. Box 168, Atlas, Michigan 48411, USA. And I'll get that. So I'll look for it, my friend. Thank you very much. David Peterson, the happy chef. Oh. Fatty Butterpants says Singapore Long John Silver's has catfish. Catfish. You know, I'll tell you right now, I made it in and out of the South without stopping at a Waffle House. And I actually told myself, if the opportunity arises, I don't have to go too far out of my way. I'll consider doing a Waffle House just to say I've done it. But Waffle House has made it in the news more for like people getting into fist fights at 3 o'clock in the morning. So. Matthias Lewis says, if it fits in the P.O. box, no problem. If it doesn't fit in the P.O. box, I'll still get it. They'll set it aside for me. Dougie News says, hey, Steve, I went for a drive yesterday. The sunroof opened. It decided to rain, and the sunroof stuck open with a blown fuse. First the car, then me. Oh, my gosh, that's horrible. Unbelievable. Yeah, that's the thing is I don't drive my Jeep or my Cobra on days where it might rain. I'm so paranoid about that. Lewis Browning says there's a Stuckey's on I-75 in Atlanta. Didn't see that. Jim's camera at dawn says your card story is perfect timing. I watched when I got back from the post office. Belio, you must do a Cracker Barrel. I've done Cracker Barrel before. I don't quite understand it. You walk in, the waiting room looks like it's somebody's grandmother's living room. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I like nostalgia as much as the next guy, but I'm not nostalgic for food from the 1800s. I just kind of I just didn't quite get it. But I wasn't drawn to go back because the food is so good. Codemeister Beats says Waffle House is good, but a bit pricey. It's right up there in free entertainment, like a boat ramp or your local courthouse. What's sad about courthouses, and again, I'm an attorney, so I know. I've sat through so many other hearings by other people's hearings that I've seen crazy stuff and I've seen so many boring hearings. But boy, when things get exciting, they do. The same is sort of boat ramp. Watching people drive their cars into the water or crashing their boats or boats sinking. Or Chris Badisa, how many T-shirts do you have? A couple thousand, maybe. Sub GR77 says there's a Hardee's in Owasso. A Hardee's in Owasso. Not to be confused with Oscoda. Blah, blah, blah. Cincinnati recently got a couple of Wallies. I hear they're good. Wallies. M. Cole would prefer Bob Evans over Cracker Barrel. I've been to a Bob Evans, and Bob Evans are pretty good for breakfast. I've done it before. Johnny Quest, how soon before Lehto Wildlife Safari is open to the public? I've mentioned before I've got coyotes on my property, and I've had coyotes just running around back there, and I see them now often. And it used to be like, I'd hear them or I'd see their footprints in the snow. And the other day, something set one of my cameras off, and I look, it's a coyote just trotting around in the afternoon. And usually you think of them as being relatively nocturnal. And almost every single night, I hear a bunch of howling, and I'm pretty sure it's a family. I think it's a mother, father, and some cubs or kits or whatever they call them. Because there's deeper voiced ones and the higher pitched ones. And make these weird noises. I can't do it. I've tried to, like, I race over to the nearest window and grab my phone. I want to record the sound they make because it's so freaky to hear. But they don't do it for very long. And if it was two packs talking to each other, then they'll do it for a while. But it's just a family squabble, family discussion, So Johnny Knoxville says you got to get to Cracker Barrel before 8 a.m. David, see any road runners? Not on my property, no. Coyotes got them all taken care of. Green Eyes 64 says, hi, Steve, checking from Santa Cruz, California. Just wanted to thank you for introducing me to the good works of the Institute for Justice. I've been a proud supporter for the last 3 years now. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And again, I'm not a part of the Institute. I just support them because I think they do good work also. But I'm glad to see other people get it as well. Daniel Ward, 2 Long John Silvers in Saginaw? Really? Okay, and by the way, I'm working on this, but someone sent, my good friend Caleb sent me a note yesterday. Said, Steve, there was a bank robbery in Saginaw the other day. Don't you mention Saginaw from time to time? And I said, yeah, I used to work there. He goes, well, check, and he sent me the link to the article. So I looked up the article, and I think the bank robbery happened in the same building my radio station was in. I'm like, that's freaky. And it's just a standalone building along State Street. And I'm 99% convinced that was it. But the radio station moved out of there in like 1985. But the funny part is I have a friend who worked there before me, and I'm pretty sure he'll remember. So I sent him a note. I'm looking it up right now. So I might do a story on my backup channel. I just think it's so bizarre. So Mike Lackner, add a Roadrunner to the car collection. You have an excuse now. Yeah, I actually like the 70 Roadrunners a lot, or a 70 GTX, which is actually just a Roadrunner with a higher level of trim on it. Showstrom, speaking of Roadrunners, any updates in the Acme movie? Yeah, they're talking about a release next year, I believe. I'm not sure why they need so much time to release a movie, but Jerry Dodge, we have a Long John Silver's here in Kalamazoo, also one in Battle Creek, and there is also one in Berrien Springs. Berrien Springs, the south end of town. Ask me how I know. CTJ Long John Silver's in Taylor. Yes, it's on Telegraph, right? Anyways, it's just south of 94. I know about that one because I've stopped there many times coming back from court in Taylor. Johnny Knoxville, Boston Market. Are those still around? I remember it was called Boston Chicken. Then they changed it to Boston Market. And then they had some issues, I believe. But they had decent stuff, but it's almost like it came and went really fast. Chucky 99999991 says, I used to live in Saginaw. My sister still does. It's gone downhill. Oh, yeah, it has. It has. The radio station left in 85. I mean, they left town. Troy built that at 70 satellite for many years. It's essentially the same car. Oh, it is. It's the same base, the base model. So it's a beautiful body style. Lewis Browning 69 Charger with a V10 Viper engine. I've seen a 68. I've seen the car in a car magazine and also at a car show where the guy shoehorned, and I mean he shoehorned in a Viper motor into a 68 Dodge Charger. Pretty cool. Chris Badisa, trail cameras for Steve's Wildlife. I need to see the videos. I'd pull it up right now, but it happened on a day when there's other stuff, and I forgot what day it was. I could pull it up on my camera on my phone. Cyberdox's Boston Market is pretty much only alive in the frozen section at the supermarket. Issacus, please do a super cut of all the shirts you've gotten. It would take me about a week and a half. Daniel Kester, the Boston market I was familiar with was a nightmare to get into with a semi. Both Boston markets I knew of were along Woodward Avenue, one near Square Lake and one down near 15 or 14. And they were kind of in weird locations with the parking too. The Prodigal Stranger says there are still some Boston markets, open in New Jersey. Fast Eddie 333. Do you hang your t-shirts or do you fold them? Oh, I hang them. I got 2 racks right there. I do this from time to time just to prove that I'm telling you the truth. But we'll go like this, and we will take a picture, and then we'll go like this, and 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 there's my current 2 racks of t-shirts. And I think it's about 150. So, but I take them off one end, wear them, and put them back. And not only do I put them on hangers, I hang them inside out. Okay. Jay Klein is the new Explorer 24 or 25. It's a 24, and it's got the 6. Johnny Knoxville says, according to Wiki, Boston Market has 20 locations left. 20. Mike Lackner says, my wife makes the best meatloaf when I behave well enough to deserve it. The thing about meatloaf, it's one of those things where, as you can imagine, there's a spectrum. Good meatloaf is really good. Bad meatloaf is really bad. Code Mr. Beats, I've been intending to get a good camera system for my house, but I want good video, but don't need anything with subscription models. Yeah, subscription models nowadays are on almost everything. You can find some that are pretty inexpensive, and some of them do have really, really cool apps that allow you to use and do stuff remotely, for instance. And but I mean, I know people who've installed all kinds of systems, and they got a control center, like on Mission Impossible, and all kinds of different multi-screen things, or or else you can just pull up your phone and go, oh, what's happening? So. Fast Eddie 333. You only use one kind of hanger. Yeah, those are all wooden hangers. Those wire hangers are of the devil. Elathea, why inside out? What do you think? Am I the only person who knows this? If you leave a t-shirt on a hanger for too long and you put it on, it'll often have these little things right here. So you hang it inside out. So when you put it on, it does that. So there you go. Mexican spec. I've never had Chick-fil-A. Neither have I. But there's none near me as far as I know. I see it at the mall, but that's basically it. Andy, New York 29. Yes, but do you wash your t-shirts? Why wouldn't I? Oh, boy. Fatty Butterpants points out the irony of it. There are no Boston markets in Boston. It's not me 07. Hey, Steve and crew. Jerry Dodge's hanging shirts inside also prevents dust. Yes, that's true too. So Johnny Knoxville suggests that the Chick-fil-A frozen lemonade is good. Oh boy. Steam Runner, as a client ever fired you? A couple. I've had a couple. I've been practicing law for 34 years. And usually I'm happy. The biggest problem lawyers have with clients is unrealistic expectations. I try really, really hard to temper my clients' expectations so they understand like what's going to happen. And I've had some clients who just keep insisting that what they want, is some crazy thing they're not going to get. And the funny part is, I had a client once. Actually, I've had a couple. I've told the story before. I had a client once fire me and then get mad when she couldn't get another attorney to take her case. But I also had a client fire me and then get really mad, and she called me back because the second attorney got her less than I told her I could get her. And I'm like, well, you fired me. That's what you're going to get. Silverthorn Good Tree. You ever lose a case where the law was on your side, but the judge was a bad person and ignored the law? Yes, and I've told the story before. I had a case once where the judge didn't like my client. Literally, just didn't like my client. And my client testified, and the judge said, I didn't believe your client, but a jury did, and he ruled against us. And so then I appealed him, and we won on appeal. And I got to stand back in front of the exact same judge with a eating grin on my face while he reinstated the judgment. Kind of like that right there. Yeah, right there. Daniel Kester ever fire a client? A couple. But again, it's usually, there have been a few where it's literally we don't get along. Johnny Knoxville is, yes, Chick-fil-A's. There's one in Flint on the north end, I believe. Novi, I don't make it over to Novi that often. Auburn Hills, I'm down there quite a bit, but Auburn Hills is really spread out. I got friends in Auburn Hills. Auburn Hills is where Mark Lieberman's business, Nostalgic Motoring, is located. So, Dougie, have you ever hired a young attorney to mentor them? No, I've only actually hired one attorney, and they worked with me, but I wasn't mentoring them. They knew what they were doing. Bite Me is going fishing. Good luck, my friend. Taco Cat says there is a Chick-fil-A in Southfield. Okay, and that's where my office is located. Belio, someone fired you and then wanted you back? Yes. There are people out there who don't actually think like lawyers or plumbers or electricians are people. Like, they actually think like, I hired you to do a job, you just do the job. I can treat you like garbage and there's nothing you can do about it. And if I fire you and I want to rehire you, you have to take me back. No, I don't. I was glad the day you fired me. Oh. Dave Beeler, what's the perfect client? Someone walks in the door and says, hey, I've got a defective automobile and I can prove it. Here are all of my documents laid out perfectly well. And I trust you to get the best settlement you can for me. Let me know what you need from me. And they're reasonable about it. And by the way, that's the bulk of my clients. Most of my clients are fine, you know. So Johnny Knoxville says that the Chick-fil-A in Southfield is on Telegraph Road. Okay, so I'm guessing right around 12 Mile or so. And there are a whole bunch of restaurants up and down that strip. There's a section of Southfield between like 13 and 11 Mile roads where there's Tel 12 Mall, but there's also a whole bunch of standalone restaurants. I think I've seen that actually because I drive up and down that all the time. Daniel Kester is the one you hired. No. I actually hired an attorney who worked with me. So if you asked him at the time, where do you work? He would have said, I work for Steve Lehto, the law office of Steve Lehto. That's my employer. And I actually had him over my, on my letterhead, and I paid him payroll and all that stuff. So. Belio, any feelings about Better Call Saul? I tried to watch. I watched 1 or 2 episodes. I just didn't quite get it. I got what they're trying to do, but it's one of those TV shows where I could be wrong, but I got the impression that they didn't actually consult many attorneys about it, and it didn't feel realistic to me on any level. And I understand TV doesn't have to be realistic, but it's too jarring for an attorney to watch a show where they constantly yank you out of that. So. ClearNet. Oh my God. Hi, Steve. Oh my God, ClearNet. Oh. Dougie Deuce's Better Call Saul took quite a while to develop. Did it hit its stride later? I mean, there have been shows like that. If you watch the first season of Seinfeld, I mean, I remember I had friends raving to me about Seinfeld, and I didn't watch it for like the first 2 or 3 years. And I'm like, I don't like Jerry Seinfeld's humor. I don't think he's funny. But that's not, the show's different. I'm like, whatever. And then later on, I'm like, this is interesting. And nobody, and people had a hard time describing what the show was about. And then, of course, it's a show about nothing. Johnny Knoxville might be up in Milwaukee July 27th. May have to come through Detroit for some buddies. Hang on. July 27th. Looks like I'll be around, my friend. Give me a call. I'll drive. Mike Lackner, do attorneys tend to get along with each other? Or is there a great deal of puffery? For the most part, attorneys get along just fine. I've met a couple attorneys who think it's part of my job to be like, I'm going to be a jackass because that's what I need to do. And I've also had attorneys who just, hey, how you doing? No problem. I get along fine. And life is easier. People just get along, but Daniel Kester with the boulder at the end of the road. Has anybody tried to sue the property owner? See, I don't know. I've told the story before about in Birmingham, Michigan, right on the border, 14 Mile, there's a road called Greenfield that dead ends into 14 Mile. And if you look at it from Google Maps, you'll see that the house that would get hit if you drove through the light put a big rock right in front of the house. And you can see it from Google Space. And I towed a car once that somebody woke up just in time to avoid the rock and hit the house next door. And I don't know if anybody's filed a lawsuit because what are you going to say? I have the right to hit your house because the rock is obvious. But it would be a tough argument to make. You have to make some kind of argument saying, well, I would have gotten hurt less if there wasn't a rock here or something. Beep, boop, bots. I picked a few blackberries today. I've got wild blackberries on my property, and they're the type that have the prickers. And if I see them and I can get to them without getting too cut up, I will actually, eat a few if they're ripe. It's not me 07. Do attorneys really get mad at each other when opposing counsel? Generally, no. But I've had a couple situations where I've had attorneys just do really stupid things. But again, we're talking 35 years. I once had an attorney schedule a deposition for the Friday between Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Friday, and I said I'm going out of town that weekend. She's like, "Too bad. I'm scheduling a deposition." And I said, "Well, tell you what, I'm not going to show up. My client's not going to show up. You can bring a motion to compel, but you can't bring it till Wednesday, the following Wednesday. And I'm going to come into court and say, told her I was going out of town, and she unreasonably said no." And what's funny is she called my office voicemail on Friday and said, "I've decided to reschedule a deposition, so we don't need to have that hearing on Wednesday." I'm like, the judge was not going to rule in your favor. So Johnny Knoxville says the Chick-fil-A drive-through, the line is long, but it moves like the Buc-ee's checkouts. See, that's what we call a callback in the industry. If we're assuming that the industry is comedy. Richard Terhune, Steve Lehto, millionaire. I own a mansion and a yacht. I don't have a mansion. Don't have a yacht. I've got a canoe. I had somebody comment and say, he's got 5 cars now. Yeah, I've got an 02 Ford Explorer and a Jeep Wrangler. It's a 98. If you were to blue book those 2 cars combined, you're talking a couple $1,000s. So it's I got 3 cars that have value. The other 2, I like both cars a lot, but doesn't make me rich. Lois Miller says she cannot find Quad Cities online. The song called Safe and Sound. So I'm going to go to YouTube. I just typed the word quad and it auto-filled in. I'm sorry. It's called Capital Cities. That's my... Why did nobody correct me? Oh, boy. So I can come on here and say something that is absolutely correct. People argue with me. I make a mistake. Did anybody correct me earlier? It's Capital City Safe and Sound. I'm sorry. Wow. I misspoke. Oh, boy. So, Lois, please look it up, and I hope you like it. Mr. Black Omega 1, you may not be rich, but you enrich our lives. I appreciate that. But by the way, you guys enrich mine too. Like I said before, I wouldn't exist without an audience. So Mexican Specs says maybe nobody else knows that band. Dan Boyd, don't forget the Capital City Goofball. Or when the Isotopes are going to move to Albuquerque, because from time to time I'll be quirky. LFE, if you're not listening, what are you doing here? Yeah, Vinny Northwest has pointed out that having all the cars does increase the cost of doing business with the state. I got to buy tags for the cars. That's true. Although I am about to gift the car. One of my old Explorer. I've already told my brother he can have it. He's going to help me do some work that I can't do myself. Daniel Kester, today is my 40th anniversary. Well, congratulations, my friend. The Prodigal Stranger, I'd never heard of Blue October. I'm going to see Blue October again this year. I love that band, Blue October. They're great. It's not me, says I can name my canoe my yacht, like Huey Lewis did in his Stuck With You video. My canoe does not have a name, but it does say, please put me back in water down the sides. Of course, Paddle to the Sea was a canoe that was carved that said, put me back in water underneath. But I put mine on the side so you can read it without flipping me over, because I don't want to be flipping over my canoe. Javier says, is it technically legal to run a nonstop garage sale all summer, just pocket the cash, asking for a friend who doesn't like to report things to the IRS? Well, believe it or not, you'll probably run afoul, possibly, of your local municipality. I knew somebody who ran a yard sale all summer long, and then one day got a notice and said, yeah, we just passed an ordinance against that. When was that? Last week. They did it because of him. So Johnny Knoxville, a hunt for Red October. Should I name my canoe the Red October? That'd be cool. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. Oh, The Prodigal Stranger. Call your canoe the Hunt for Blue October. Jerry Dodge, Canoey McCanoe Face. Now people are giving me all these great names. For the two says local municipalities typically put limits on how many days you can do a yard sale, but in bigger cities, yeah, but small towns, not really. Yeah, it depends on where you are. Look it up. Cat Town. Hi, Steve from Tennessee. Pelican 283 says, "Are you aware of all the ads that are now being shown in your regular episodes?" Yes, I am. I've mentioned in the past, a long time ago, I said I was holding off on the mid rolls, was what we call those in the industry, for as long as I could, because I personally, if I hit a mid roll, I skip it, and so unfortunately, YouTube is an advertising platform, and they are leaning heavily on creators to run mid rolls, and I held out as long as I could, and I apologize, and I actually got several emails from people going, "Steve, what took you so long?" Because everybody else is running mid rolls. I wasn't. But I had one guy send me a really nasty email about what a jackass I am because now he's going to stop watching and it's going to ruin my channel and he hates me and all this stuff like that. And I'm like, I could show you statistically that since I've done that, my views have gone up. They didn't go down, they went up. But besides that, I got so many emails from people going, "Steve, other people did this years ago, so the fact that you held out as long as you could, I thank you for that." But again, you're going to see ads on YouTube, and you can get around them by buying the YouTube Premium, which is what a lot of people do. So right now there are people going, "Wait, what? I didn't even know there were because I buy the Premium." So there you go. Jason Brindamauer, is it legal for Flat Rock to charge for having a yard sale? You mean like make you buy a license or something? I've never heard of that, but it wouldn't surprise me. You'd have to litigate it, though. Javier, I love advertisements. You can actually watch them and make money, but they're usually scams. Mexican Spec, I haven't seen an ad in the middle of your videos. See, there you go. James Chamelix is a Chevy commercial right after you took your Jeep for a ride. Oh, there are not mid-rolls on my backup channel. I haven't done that yet. Again, I'm holding out. CyberDoc. This is 2025, and we're still explaining to people how to remove ads. Jerry Dodge, I'd love to have a yard sale and sell a bunch of my stuff, but I live in the second floor of an apartment. What you need to do then is talk to the apartment management and say, "Can we do a yard sale where a bunch of us just do a yard sale like one day?" Maybe. So. Oh, PWNUL OL. You mad? Pond you? LOL. You mad? I loved your recent collaboration with Ed Bolian. Thank you. What's funny is the interview videos, people who watch them enjoy them. But then I also have people going, "Oh, I don't watch you to see you do an interview with some guy." And so, hey, I I hate to break news to you. One of the criteria I use to decide if I'm going to do something is if I think it's going to be enjoyable. And I had fun doing it. So, Mexican Spec, I can't believe Ed Bowling is only 39. He's a youngster. He's a youngster. Ed and I spent the day with Ed a week ago Friday. We shot a bunch of videos, and then I insisted he sit with me, and I shot a video with him. And the funniest part of all is that when you walk into his garage, there he has 3 Lamborghinis, a Spiker, and a Bugatti. And the Bugatti, of course, is the one that's owned by Justin Bieber and Floyd Mayweather. And we took a break, and he goes, "Let's go to lunch." It's great. He goes, "Which car do you want to go in?" And I looked over and I saw the Lamborghini we took to lunch last time. I said, "Last time I think we took that one. Why don't we take this one?" So we went to lunch in his orange Lamborghini, the one that he bought that apparently has a Yakuza past. It's got all kinds of weird neon and bling inside. And the doors open up like this, and it's just crazy. But the car was a lot of fun. Then we had lunch at a Taffer's restaurant owned by John Taffer of Bar Rescue fame. And you walk in the door and there's this huge oil painting of John Taffer like smiling. And I thought he was gonna start yelling at me. And I realized, oh, it's an oil painting. He can't yell at me. But it was so much fun. And so I had people go, "But Steve, why did you go for lunch in the Bugatti?" And I understand the Bugatti's worth more money, but I like the Lamborghinis better. Like if you just which one, I think it's a better looking car. The Lamborghini is. So it's not me 07. No pressure working in a John Taffer restaurant. Can you imagine? The thing is, he's going to train you well because he always screams about that on Bar Rescue, and his standards are going to be high. But guess what? People are going to come back, and the bar is going to be a success. Dave Beeler, you're a tall guy. How do you fit in those exotics? Not well. And in fact, I got some photographs. I'll have to dig through here and find them, but I can do that because I can multitask. But I'm standing next to Ed Bolian in this picture, and he is taller than I am. So we're right there. We're in front of one Lamborghini, behind another. And the Lamborghini is a tighter fit than the Viper is. I kid you not. So we were in the car, and I'm like this. I just closed the door, and I go, "Hey, Ed," I go, "is this seat as like far back and as far down as it goes?" He goes, "Yes." I go, "Is yours?" And he goes, "Yes." And he's driving with his knees up. "These are your dream cars and they're uncomfortable." He goes, "Yes." Jerry Dodge, have you ever ridden a Lamborghini tractor? No, I have not. Lamborghini made tractors, I believe, before he made cars. I like one. I've seen them for sale, but I've seen really nice ones for sale. I like when I can drive around, just for fun of it. Steam Runner, what was your first car? I talk about that with Ed in the interview. First car I got to drive was, on a regular basis, was a Gremlin, 1974 green Gremlin. First car I owned that I got to drive that was cool was a 69 Dodge Charger with a 383. Jay Klein says the Viper's made for an American. Believe it or not, though, the Viper stock is still a very, very tight fit. And in my Viper, the only modification I've made to my Viper is I lowered the seat 2 inches. There's actually a kit you can buy where they lower where you pull the seat out, then you pull the seat mounting hardware out, and you put in this other bracket thing, and it lowers the seat 2 inches. So when I'm in my car and a passenger is next to me, they're actually elevated 2 inches. And you wouldn't really notice it, but the difference is that I've got space above my head, whereas before the roof was like, the inside of the headliner is right here. And it bothers me when it feels like my head is hitting the roof. Yeah, PWN, LOL, you mad. Hoovy has a Lambo tractor. Yes, I saw that in Car Trek, the most recent Car Trek series. All three of them got onto Hoovy's Lambo tractor. We're driving around Hoovy's yard there. So Aaron Freeman, my first car was a Pinto. I had a friend who had a Pinto. Yeah, the birds are free says my knees would hate a supercar. And I hate to say this out loud, but what if you crash a supercar? That's the kind of car they're going to be bringing like the jaws of life and have to literally rip holes in 3 different places to bust you out of there. Oh boy. Lois Miller says, I went back in the band as Capital Cities, not Quad City. The song Steve mentioned is Safe and Sound. Yes, I think I said that above, but yes, thank you. The question is, do you like the song or not? Now people are go, hey, how many of you are here because of Steve Lehto? He's got bad taste in music. Henry Nissen and hi, Steve. Think of going camping your Marquette soon. Any cool things that you should check out in the UP? Which way are you coming in? Are you coming from the south or from the west? Or heaven forbid from the east? Just joking. Marquette is beautiful. But on your way there, you'll pass a bunch of cool things. There's a mountain in Marquette called Sugarloaf that you can hike up the top of. That's pretty cool. There's also a park in Marquette, Presque Isle Park, that you can visit. That's pretty cool. Downtown Marquette's got some really neat old buildings. The old courthouse is historic, and other stuff. But which way are you coming in? That's extremely important to know. Javier says, do you know a top tier John Deere 9RX 830 industrial tractor starts at 1.26 million MSRP? You know, city folks don't understand what country folk do about the value of a tractor. And nowadays, yeah, you can buy $1 million tractor. And guess what? It's got an air-conditioned cab and all kinds of computerized stuff. And yes, as Javier points out, people will still tape it together and pray it starts in January. Beep Boop Bot points out Kitchen to Kippy is something you definitely want to check out if you're coming in from the Southwest, like up through like Wisconsin. Jerry Dodge says, I wish Kalamazoo had a better skyline. The best view is when coming from the east on Gull Road. Is that out near Gull Lake? I've been there many times. Charles Hadel says, Gremlin and Pinto, but my first car's worse, an 84 Escort. I do not believe an Escort is worse than a Gremlin. I would put an Escort above a Gremlin. And probably above a Pinto, too, because an Escort probably is less likely to burst into flames. Henry Nissen, I'll be coming to Detroit and crossing the Mackinac Bridge on the way to Marquette. So you're coming up from the south. So when you cross the bridge, hang left on US 2, you'll pass by Lehto's Pasties. No relation, but they are the best pasties up there. And now you probably want to try the pasties. And then it doesn't matter how you do it. There's a couple different ways, but you wind up coming through a little town called Munising. And Munising is cool. If you can stop at Munising, there's a couple of different cruises you can do out on the lake, including one of the pictured rocks, where they'll take you out and drive you by the pictured rocks on a boat, or they'll take you out and around like Grand Island. Also, there are glass bottom boat tours. They'll take you over some shipwrecks, which are really, really cool also. And then, like I said, the Marquette area is Sugarloaf and the park. And pretty much any of the forests are nice if you want to get out and check out the forests. So, David C., how about a Vega? Yeah, a Vega is in the exact same class as a Pinto and so on. Steam Runner, ever to Washington State? No, I have not. Cyberdoc says the Gremlins look cool with that slanted hatch sporting fat mag wheels. You get a Gremlin X with a V8 in it. My brother had one. But Johnny Knoxville says Lehto's Pasty says 4.7 stars on Google. Who on earth would give it less than 5 stars? It's a little building by the side of the road. They don't have eat-in. They've got picnic tables outside. But you get the pasties and you eat them. And I guarantee you someone's going to be like, they didn't have restrooms. I don't think they're required to if they're just a carry out. They only had paper plates. Yeah. Does McDonald's give you a fine cutlery in China? Uh, they didn't have emu or ostrich pasties. Mexican Spec says no, Steve. The Vega was a horrible car. Period. Now here's the deal, dude. You're allowed to have an opinion, but so am I. I've owned a Vega. Okay. And when you say it was horrible from new, you understand how little they cost? You get what you pay for. I owned a Vega. And so the Pinto was a dependable car with every engine and transmission they offered. Okay. There are people who disagree with you on that. Aletheus is the best pasties from Cornwall. Of course, that's where they came from. Okay. Johnny Knoxville, Lehto's Pasties has a Rutabaga shirt on the wall in their photos. I've got one. I've got one. I've worn it on camera before. You must have missed that episode. It's still in rotation. I think the shirt actually says Rutabaga across the front and Lehto's on the back. And I think on the occasion I wear it, I will often turn the shirt around and show that to explain why I'm wearing that shirt. Dan Boyd, it's raining here. Oh. Dan Boyd, Vegas were shipped by rail standing up on it. There was a bunch of weird things they did with that. We could call it innovation, or we could call it weird. Take your pick. Henry Nissen, thanks to everyone for the suggestions. I'll definitely check out Lehto's Pasties. And see, one thing I can tell you is there's a couple things that are kind of out of the way. Like Tequamanon Falls is not on the way. It's literally, it'll be like a day trip up and back because there's no easy way to get from where you're going to there or vice versa. But David C. Pinto with a doctored fireball video. I believe, aren't you referring to the side saddle gas tanks and the Chevy trucks? And it wasn't 60 Minutes. It was a news program, unless they also did it with a Pinto. But I'm talking about something that happened in the early 90s. Johnny Knoxville, Lehto's Pasties has like 1990s prices. No, I've eaten there so many times. No relation. I always go in there and joke with him about it. But it's just a little family run business, and they make them on the site, and they're the best pasties out there. They're very, very good. Mind Ben says I visited the Tequamanon Falls. The water is tea colored. Yeah, or root beer we call it. It's because upstream there are cedar swamps, and when cedar swamps over time, as the trees decay into them, it turns the water that color. It's the tannins in the water, the tannins. Lois Miller, it is a good song. I like the video with all the 80s dance video clips. Thank you. I appreciate that. So it's capital cities, safe and sound. I always think quad cities. I don't know why I think that. Chris Badesa, thanks to one and all for participating. Yeah, it's getting near that time. Greg Hansen, paper plates are fine. Just make sure you get plenty of ketchup. And there's always a debate about ketchup versus gravy. I personally like butter, and they don't carry butter at Lehto's, but I'm okay with that. I'll do ketchup. Daniel Kester, does the pasties have coleslaw? No. They no. It's a meat pie with a bunch of things mixed in, like chopped up potatoes, carrots, rutabaga, and so on. It's a thing unto itself. It's not me 07. The Canadian robot lady checked in earlier. She's at work. She apologized. Mexican Spec says it may have been ABC. I think you're right. They got busted for faking the video with the Chevy trucks. They would tell you they're simply doing an illustration. But yeah, they rigged it to blow when it got hit. Codemeister Beats, Quad City DJs is a thing. Yes, that's the confusion. Hang on a second. Now I'm okay. Quad City There you go. Normally my brain doesn't make up stuff. Occasionally it'll shuffle stuff, but it won't make it up. Birds are free. We visited the UP for our 25th anniversary, 2 years after the lockdowns. The Quamanon Falls are beautiful. Oh, they are absolutely gorgeous. Among the nicer state parks in Michigan too. They've done a really, really good job of updating everything there too. CyberDoc, thanks, and the rest of you amazing people. And it jumped. Have an awesome week. Johnny Knoxville, I could get the pasty without the rutabaga. Dude, you've never had a pasty? I'm not sure if they all have rutabaga, but the rutabaga is not. It's not prominent. It's not like a rutabaga pie. Oh boy. Idris Taylor says no carrots in a Cornish style pasty. Probably not. I wouldn't be surprised. Do they have rutabaga? I mean, they do actually make I think they make a vegan pasty or a vegetable of some sort, but that's just that's sacrilege. So Johnny Knoxville says I don't think pasties are a thing in Milwaukee or North Carolina. No, but you've driven through the UP. You drove past Lehto's Pasties if you went from Escanaba to the bridge. You've done that. Blah, blah, blah. Isn't rutabaga just a purple celery? Johnny Knoxville, a pasty is basically a Finnish hot pocket. In many respects, yes. It's kind of funny because people always assume that they are Finnish because so many Finns eat them, but they were brought over by the Cornish and they were embraced by the Finns, we say. Art S, the New Jersey farm seizure made UK news. Wouldn't surprise me. It was national news for quite a bit here. Mike Kuhn, Grand Rapids, Michigan says hello. Sometimes I listen to myself. Have you had Kringles from Wisconsin? No. I've driven past the cheese castle, though. I've always wondered why is there a castle of cheese? Johnny Knoxville, I sent Steve an Owen H. Kringle, which he ate on the air. It must have been a while ago. I haven't done demonstrations like that in a while. It's a while back, right? Yeah, Chief FC. I love the Mars Cheese Castle. I called a friend of mine who lived in Wisconsin. I go, what's it all about? And he goes, did you stop? And I go, no. And he goes, okay, you win. A tourist trap of some sort. So, 2018, dude, 7 years ago. Once in a while, I'll be talking about something and I'll say, well, I did a video about that. And people go, really? I don't remember that. I'm like, oh, wait, that's right. I did a video like that 8 years ago or 9 years ago when I had like 9,000 subscribers. Oh, boy. Yeah, Chief FC, the Mars Cheese Castle. It's just like a gigantic like monument to cheese, right? Don't get me wrong. I understand Wisconsin's big on their cheese. Detroit's big on their cars, but come on. Fatty Butterpants got to run later, folks. Mike Torello, thanks. Steve. Oh, David C. says 1978 broadcast by ABC's 2020 aired dramatic footage of a Ford sedan being rear-ended. So we're talking about two different incidents because there was a time when they went and found a side saddle gas tank equipped truck, parked it sideways, and then they mounted model rocket engines underneath it. And they rammed it with a vehicle and it exploded as if on cue. And it turns out, if you watched it in super slow motion, it exploded right before it got hit. And General Motors held a press conference and they said, watch this. And they showed it in super slow-mo and they paused it as the truck hadn't hit it yet. And you could see the engines being triggered, the rocket engines. And then when they suspected that's what happened, they went and searched all the junkyards and they found the truck still with these things mounted on them. And they filed a lawsuit. I'm not sure they actually litigated any of it or just settled for a false light defamation, saying that by creating this image of a truck doing something that made it look like these things just blow up willy-nilly was bad for business. And I think most people were like, yeah, that's not how you should be doing that. Dustin Carpenter with a side saddle fuel tank. If you look at a truck's design, there's different places you can put a fuel tank. They all have the pros and cons. Side saddle is where they put the fuel tanks on the outside of the frame rails. So if the truck gets T-boned, you're more likely to collapse the gas tank. There were old days where they actually put the gas tank underneath the seat or behind the seat inside the passenger compartment in the old days. As Bob Blah Blah pointed out earlier, there's times when the gas tank was right there when you popped the trunk or the deck lid on a vehicle. You weren't looking at a trunk bottom. You were looking at the top of the gas tank. And so they've evolved this technology over time. And so there was a time when much of the industry had gone to putting the gas tanks inside the frame rails. And there was an argument to mean that we're talking about the gas tank, okay? Gasoline. So that was the argument. And it was one of those mathematical things where you could show statistics. And in certain types of accidents, there were more fires and explosions and whatnot. But other kinds of accidents, there weren't. And it just depends on how you look at it. So anyway, that's it. Belio, T-bone. T-bone's really giving it to Coco. Florida Bart Fast. I still have a Jeep with a gas tank under the driver's seat. I've seen those too. It's 3:00. About to get slap happy here, so I'm going to call it a day. I will talk to you guys, as I always do, next weekend. In between now and then, videos during the day. I might do a pop-up in the evening. You never know. And then I'll do a second channel video on Friday. Other than that, have a great week. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.